Happy July 4th, everyone. How's it going? This is Tyler Dunn. Go long at golongtd.com. All the long form coverage that you want right there. Player profiles, team deep dives, columns, podcasts, and Jim, as I love to tell our readers, our listeners, when it gets a little quieter at the site, when I haven't posted in a week or two, it's a good sign. I promise to our subscribers, it's a good sign. Kind of chipping away at something a little more exhaustive here from our OTA minicamp cross country tour. So cannot wait to share this story. Honestly, this player that I sat down with had a life story that blew my mind. I think it will blow our readers' mind, and I just want to do him justice, do the story justice. So thank you everyone for kind of being patient as that one is put together. And hey, in the meantime, let's do a podcast here with my friend, your friend, Jim Monis. Jim, how is everything out there in Hamburg, New York?
Happy 4th, Tyler. 4th is all about getting outside, cooking. There's no football. I mean, we're going to talk football, but there's nothing in sports right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's celebrate America. Let's
Yeah,
do it.
that's
Yeah,
what I'm saying. It's
hell
there's a
yeah.
lot going on in the world. Let's just take a step back, take a breather for a second, take a break from Caitlin Clark, take a break from uh, Bobby Bonilla Day a couple days ago when he got his 1 million per year for the next however many years. Let's step back, appreciate where we are. There's a lot going on with this election, apparently. So anyway, point being is it is a time to see family, friends, cook out. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, I'm a little hawk to it out also. That's gotten a little
Oh,
overplayed.
please.
Look, I'm no prude. I know I'm 37 and two kids and bald and bearded and hell, maybe I am getting old, but I think it says a lot about our society that this is being celebrated to the extreme. It's being celebrated. So maybe we're not allowed to say that out loud, but it's a little gross. It's crazy.
I'm good on
Um,
it. I saw
just a couple of dads
Shaq took
here, right?
yeah, Shaq. I saw Shaq took a picture with it. I'm like, I'm good. I love Shaq. So that's when I know it's time to keep it moving. Shaq's taking care of it. He's on the case.
Yeah, I mean, me, Sonny, and Ella, we love dancing to Revival down there in the basement. Like that is the go-to Zach Bryan jam. So
And forever.
imagine the dismay I felt and seeing her just brought on stage. That's the claim to fame in this country, which, yeah, maybe July 4th kind of snaps everybody back to reality. That'd be nice. So what's
It's
what's
time.
happening on your end? Everything good? You're coming
Good.
over. We're gonna do a little shindig here. We should hit record on the festivities Sunday. Your
No.
famous ribs. We're finally gonna
Ribs
taste them.
being hey, I'm looking forward to everybody trying them. I want reviews, hear what we got. A little different, I'm from the South, so well, I'm not from the South, but lived in the South, learned to hone my smoking skills in the South. Smoking on the grill, on the outside
I didn't let my mind go anywhere else but that. I cannot wait. Cannot wait. So we'll have a nice little gathering here. Kids running all over the place. Edmund, he's ready. Our dog, he can't wait to have some friends to play with. So that'll be fun. But first, before we get into any football, and I should mention also the podcast fueled by our friends at Fatty Beer. Always a good time to head downtown Hamburg, Orchard Park, Kenmore, Tonawanda. They're everywhere. Load up with whatever beer you prefer. They bring in the best beers from around the country. Nick and Chris will have you covered. Before we get into football, something strange kind of happened this morning. I shouldn't say strange because it's not strange in 2024, but I want your opinion on this because you have a son. I've got a son and a daughter, and I feel like this is the war that we are going to be waging till they're all 18 years old and go off to college or jobs or whatever. So we're sitting there at breakfast at Three Girls Cafe here in Boston, New York, right? A hop, skip, and a jump from Hamburg. Amazing. Every time we eat there, I'm like, why don't we come here more often? saw Gina's grandparents, so it was good to catch up. But I'm like, Gina, just look around, and at each of the tables around us, the triangular, three different tables, three different families, all kids the same age as our kids. Every single one of the kids at these tables staring at a tablet, staring at a phone, just watching a show, playing a game, literally the entire. Now this is controversial, and hopefully we don't turn off some listeners, but I have put my dad foot down on this. No screens, no tablets. If we are out to eat, our kids, they're about to be 5 and 3, are conversing, they're gaining people skills. If it's hard to get through a meal, so be it. you know, got to be a parent and work through it. And I feel like at this point, if your kids are doing that, you almost get an edge. It's just sad. I was just so sad to look around and just see an entire generation of zombies being raised, right? Like just looking at a screen, not thinking, not communicating. Like this whole generation just growing up on screens. And I think a lot of school systems just throw you a tablet. This is how you're going to learn now. And no, like I'm absolutely not. I don't like it. I hate it. I think it's going to hurt our species. There's a million studies out there that support it, obviously, but where do you stand on screens? We are very, very anti. Look, we don't get me wrong. We've talked about Bluey. We'll watch a show here and there. I feel like TV is almost its own kind of category, right? To a certain extent. And you don't want to just have your kid in front of a TV all day, too. You got to play. You got to parent and have fun and introduce different things. But I mean, whether it's that breakfast or every time I'm working at a coffee shop, you know, dads, moms come in and they get their order, they sit down, throw a screen in front of the kid, and they don't even say a word to each other. It's depressing me, man. It's bumming me out. This is where we're going.
So I think it's important to be flexible. Your game plan is correct. You go to the restaurant with the right intentions, the game plan. We're going to run the ball, no videos. We're going to stick to the game plan. But there's a thing, you have to be flexible, as we know. Ask the Baltimore Ravens. I feel like I have to bring it up every single podcast, but that game plan was bummish against Kansas City this year, and we all know it. So to your point, you have to be flexible. I like your game plan. Now, there's a thing called survivor or survival mode when you're a parent sometimes. That's why I'm saying you have to be flexible. We've all been there. Whether if you have one parent or two parents, that makes a difference sometimes.
True.
If you have Gina with you, I think you guys should stick to the game plan. That's full force. You're good to go. But if it's you with just the two, you may need a little screen help to get you through. I'm just saying. But I like the game plan. I'm with you. Get out and play. Get off the screens as much as you can. I try to use TV, Bluey, anything like that. I try to use it for, I need some help right now. I need 20 minutes to do something or half hour. I need
Right,
some help.
right. Different category.
But to your point, if you're going to go to a restaurant, let's talk about stuff. Let's learn how to go out and eat. I like it.
I feel like we were raised by parents who didn't do that, I think, right? The stuff didn't exist. What were the distractions? What were the tools implemented? I wonder. Yeah, I think it's being used and abused to the extreme. Okay, I get it. Your heart's in the right place.
I think you're right.
I can't judge every individual family situation, every child situation, but I feel like in terms of attention spans and rambunctiousness and everything you hear, all the different labels and names put on things. A lot of this stuff wasn't even around 10, 15 years ago. Right? I think a lot of it is rooted in here's a screen, shiny object. You need that shiny object every 2 to 5 seconds. Something changes. That's why Coco Melon became so popular. It's just rapid, just different screen, different song. We just need to slow down and just sit and enjoy life, breathe in the fresh air. I guess it's kind of what, honestly, Jim, and That's a big reason I even launched Go Long in terms of where that's sports media too. Everything's fast food. Everything is on a social media feed, quick, bite size, in and out, move along. I don't know. I feel like there needs to be like an uprising of people that want to take their brains back, sit, read, learn, and put in that time, right? There's value to delayed gratification. I think that's probably what it all comes back to. Delayed gratification is such a beautiful thing, whether you're a 3-year old at breakfast with your family or adults. Like we're all guilty of it, right? You can just flip around on Instagram reels all night easily. And it's like, no, let's put this shit down and read a book.
But you're so right about the slowdown part. It's so hard to get anybody to slow down.
Mm.
And we dealt with it in the NFL, putting teams together. It didn't. You remember? I mean, it used to be just. It was a given that that first round quarterback was probably going to sit. It was almost a given.
Yeah.
And now it is almost a given where he's on the field tomorrow, which I'm good with. I mean, I think times have changed. Keep up with it. Get him on the field. Let's do it. But to your point, it is just everything is quick, quick, quick judgment. Let's get it done. What's on to the next? Who's the first to do this? The first to report it. So
That's so true, though. I mean, that's a great point. I think that we see it in the NFL, we see it in all of sports. It's the need for results, the need for gratification in any sense right now. That's why what Green Bay is doing is so unique. Drafting a quarterback, sitting him 3 years. You don't have an owner that's breathing down the GM's neck, telling him what to do, how to do it. Uh, you know what, though? I do wonder, and I'd love to hear from our listeners too, Jim, because I, I do think a lot of it is based on what everybody's saying on Twitter or what everybody's saying on Instagram or Facebook, and companies, institutions kind of operate through that lens. Like they think that people want things fast and snappy. And now, when the vast majority of people, I think, would be okay with taking a deep breath and slowing down, whatever that line of work is.
but it's that fine line of justifying to whoever's paying the bills.
Right.
What are the expectations? When is the goal need to be reached? Blah, blah, blah. With there, whatever business you're in, not just sports, it's like, do we have time or not?
Hell, I talk to a lot of my sports writing buddies, and it's like they're working at websites or newspapers or TV station. It's like they're following an edict. Like they're told this is the approach we're taking now. And right, there's the shameless plug for anybody who hasn't subscribed to Go Along yet. We will write for you. We're not going to write for advertisers telling us to operate at warp speed and appease Twitter. So I don't know. I mean, we were just kind of all over the place there. It all started with that scene at breakfast. It was.
What I like, though, where this could head is the Giants. As far as having time, we were just talking about rushing things, all that, and that's the big topic today because of the Hard Knocks episode. And I like seeing that footage of Joe Schoen behind the scenes, because that was my life for a while, and it was I can picture all those meetings, and it's like to have somebody see that. I'm thinking about if you could have seen some of our meetings. They weren't that. What they showed was nice. It looked a little made for TV to me. I mean, a nice question from the director of player personnel to the GM in front of the camera, like, well, what's the plan if we lose Saquon? I mean, come on, that you talked about that 500 million times, before that big meeting, on camera. So I get it. You have to do it. But that topic, that is how you address the Saquon. I agree with Joe Schoen's assessment on that was, we paid the quarterback. Let's go. It's time for him to play. We've talked about it on Go Long forever. He's the only quarterback. It's about his 10th year, and we still make excuses for him. And you could hear it in Joe Schoen's voice almost like, hey, and because he did it. I extended him. I paid him this. Now it's time for him to earn the money. We just gave him a baller receiver, playmaker that you put Neighbors on any team, he's a playmaker. So if he's not making plays with Daniel Jones is the problem.
That's interesting because I mean you would know better than myself
Yeah.
what those meetings are really like. Because I'm watching this and thinking, this is refreshing. This feels like a real Hard Knocks, not just pandering fluff. That this is a somewhat of a disagreement behind the scenes, and you've got the owner's nephew, who's director of personnel, sitting right there, trying to express the value of Saquon Barkley, and then you have the general manager saying, "No, like we've got a $40 million quarterback. We got to see what we have here. We're not paying him this much money to hand the ball off." It seemed like the state of the Giants to me. I mean, that's where the Giants are. They need to see something out of Daniel Jones in 2024. Jobs are on the line from the top down. They need him to perform. It felt like the conversation and that look uh what kind of exemplified the state of the franchise this season, which you don't always get in Hard Knocks. I kind of tuned out Hard Knocks a long time ago.
So maybe that's the where I'm not hard. I'm with you. I've tuned out on Hard Knocks so long ago. That is better than what they're showing at training camp. I agree. And to your point, yeah, that is how meetings are. I mean, that was a very professional. I mean, yeah, you do have the professional meetings like that, but I just know that stuff is talked about. As Tyler, you cover every team. When you see the GM and personnel, they're all the time huddled up on the sidelines watching practice. You can tell when it's a casual conversation, and you can tell when they're talking about something. Because there's times when that's when you have your chance to get together is on the field, because then you go your separate ways in the office sometimes getting things done. So that's the GM's way of actually getting his director of player personnel and on the sidelines of practice. Now I know we're in free agency and all that, so everything was done in the meetings. But I'm saying that stuff was talked about. That wasn't the first time. That meeting wasn't the first time that was discussed.
Yeah. If people didn't catch it, I'm just going to pull up the exact
Yeah. But
back and
you're right,
forth.
Tyler.
So,
That is good. That is good stuff for anybody that wants to see. That is accurate portrayal of how the GM is telling them, nope, this is why, and this is how I see it. And that was really good open communication, I thought.
Tim McDonald, personnel head, nephew of the owner, is sitting there in the room. Hey, we reported this a few years back, right, with the autopsy and Dave Gettleman and Joe Judge and the ship heading toward the iceberg there. I think it maybe surprised some fans that the nephew had that kind of influence. He ain't going anywhere. So he's sitting there and he says, "We lose Saquon. What's our identity going to be?" And Joe Schoen responds, "We've got to upgrade the offensive line, and you're paying Daniel Jones $40 million. It's not to hand the ball off to a $12 million running back." And then he continued to say, "This is the year for Daniel. The plan all along was to give him a couple years. Is he our guy for the next 10 years? Or do we need to pivot and go find someone else?" We've talked about it here. They tried. I mean, they explored it. Bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
They explored pivoting. Trade talks with Elliott Wolf and the New England Patriots. Patriots win budge. They take Drake May, who, by the way, Sean King, former NFL quarterback, on this podcast said a week ago he doesn't think Drake May's a first-round quarterback. He thinks it says everything that if he can't beat out Jacoby Brissett, um, that's going to be really interesting to see where his career goes. But they explored it. So it's all about Daniel Jones this year. We've
It
gotten
should
into
be.
him several times over. Any more thoughts on his prospects? I mean, if they have a better offensive line, they completely revamp the interior. They get him Malik Neighbors. Darren Waller's gone. He's making music videos that are, you want to talk about strange. Holy hell. Um, Devin Singletary in the fold. Where this could go any direction. I'm reserving right to make an opinion on it till maybe getting out there for training camp a bit.
Fascinating team to follow, fascinating division to follow this year. We touched on it, I think, 2 pods ago, but that division is, I mean, you're talking the Giants, we're dissecting Daniel Jones so hard. This is a make or break year for him. That's not an easy division to have your make or break year. I mean, you're talking Dallas and Philly are better teams than the Giants. Like they are clearly better teams. So you're right now, you're looking at, and I like Jaden Daniels better than Daniel Jones. You have the worst quarterback in your division. Leave it at that. I mean, you're going into the season with the worst quarterback in your division. That's not how I'd feel good about being a GM.
You did sign Isaiah McKenzie. He could be the ibuprofen that heals all things on offense. Isaiah McKenzie, former podcast co-host. That'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I hear you, man. I mean, they signed Drew Lock. Does Lock see the field at some point? Like if Jones is struggling, does Dayball start to sweat it out, get a little nervous, look after his ass and say, hey, I got to get a different quarterback in there. We've seen this now for two.
If I'm the owner, if I'm Mara and Joe Schoen's telling me that, hey, this is what we're paying Daniel Jones, not Saquon, then I would say, okay, he will play every rep. Don't care about the record. I don't care about his stats. He plays every rep this year. If I see Drew Lock, that means there's a major injury.
Yeah. What I really do like about the Giants, though, is the defense. And I know
no, you're right.
It might seem prehistoric to praise defense in today's NFL when the first defensive player in the draft was taken, 12th or 13th overall. This game is going offense in every conceivable way. But Brian Burns, you have a top 5 edge rusher. You have a top 5 nose tackle, maybe the best in Dexter Lawrence. Kayvon Thibodeau, he had his moments. You need him to be a star. Bobby Okereke, middle linebacker. He was worth every dime. Man, that game against Buffalo that they blew, he was the best player on the field that night. Just unbelievable performance there. Then on the back end, Tyler Nubin, really liked him in college. And then you need Deonte Banks at corner, your first round pick from a couple years ago to ascend. There's hope in the defense. I can see this defense keeping the Giants in games. We always come back to that, right? Is there a formula? If you're not really sold and you don't think the quarterback is this top 12 guy, is there a path to a division title? And exactly 1 year ago, here we were, Jim, celebrating the Atlanta Falcons. And what happened? Desmond Ridder directly cost them at least 3 games. They win those 3. I mean, really, we're talking egregious turnovers. They win those 3 games. They win the division. It's a different conversation. So maybe the line is thinner than what we think, but it's the same conversation. Is there a calculation for the Giants to win the division with a roster like this when the quarterback has so many question marks? Still, that's a big gamble for Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. Right? They've got to win this year. This is year 3.
Yeah, it's always interesting. Joe Schoen and Dave Gettleman obviously have a close relationship from their past with the Carolina Panthers together. And so I always wonder about that. If
I'm sure he loves his name getting lumped in the same sentence as Dave Gettleman, right? Everybody does.
But they support, I think they do though, Tyler. You know how you have those mentors?
I'm just saying with fans. I mean, that name.
Oh, Joe does not want to be linked in together.
Right.
I'm sorry. Yes, you're correct. That's not but I do know there's a respect factor, and obviously, boy, nobody gets more chances than Daniel Jones.
I mean, there really is a respect factor, and look at the decisions that they made, the first wave of big decisions in re-signing Daniel Jones, Dexter Lawrence, Saquon Barkley. I mean, they re-signed him until they didn't. They kept around Andrew Thomas.
You could make an argument that giving Saquon that money and Daniel Jones, those are fireable offenses. Seriously. If you're paying a running back, I can almost leave it at that. It has nothing to do with his talent. That's not the issue. The issue is this quarterback that was drafted by the previous GM, you doubled down on. That's the issue. The quarterback's the issue. It's not Saquon.
They believe in Daniel Jones. I don't think that it's fluff. Hell, I
Oh,
talked to Joe Schoen this time last year, and he kind of took us through that offseason and the decision-making process, and they really did grade Daniel Jones week one through the playoff win against Minnesota, the loss to Philly, taking everything into account. You he wasn't throwing to much talent. Uh, it was rough out there,
they do have good receivers.
and
I do like their
and they made
receiving
and
core.
they made the playoffs, and so they saw enough. And I think that when you look, I should pull up Spot Tracker, our good buddy Michael Giannetti, and see where he ranks, because now I think he's got to be
But,
12th or 13th now.
but that's a thing of the past. That's like talking about completion percentage, talking about quarterback draft rankings. I mean, salary cap rankings, whatever you want to look at.
I,
It's become
I'm
ridiculous.
just saying, like, where a lot of people might see Daniel Jones as a
Over.
one or two read quarterback who needs a good run game, who needs everything to be right to be successful. They clearly see something more. Like they clearly think he can handle Brian Dable's coaching. This coach is going to be hard on you, and Dable signing off on it. He's got to sign off on a contract like that, and then to run it back the next year. So they at least have this year to work with him. Then there's that escape hatch in his contract. But I want to ask you, Jim Monis, former Eagle Scout, Saint Scout, director personnel of the Buffalo Bills, if you were Joe Schoen, if you were the general manager for the Giants, you step into that situation when they did, what are you doing? I guess at quarterback and beyond, because they kind of made that calculated decision to retain some of those Gettleman pieces. Took it case by case. Andrew Thomas, Dexter Lawrence, Daniel Jones with the creative contract. That's really more of a 2 year, but still a lot of money, right? Let's not get past that. It's a lot of money. Uh, what are you doing? Are you like looking at the roster and seeing what the previous regime did and valuing some of those players, or a lot of teams go the opposite direction. I'm thinking of the Cincinnati Bengals, for example, right? When you have Zach Taylor comes in, and that was a perennial okay to solid Bengals team with Marvin Lewis. Geno Atkins, Giovanni Bernard, AJ Green. A lot of those players were good, but I think culturally, the Bengals just wanted to hit reset. Like it was start over. Like we might be really bad for a year, maybe 2 years. And they were really bad. They get Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow gets hurt. So they're really bad again. And they get Jamar Chase. So that's kind of like the other extreme, I suppose, if you're building a team. Would you be more tempted to slam that reset button, get your own guys, tear it down to the studs? Or are you getting a little more meticulous like Joe Schoen and Brian Dable did? Like, okay, we like this guy, we like this guy, we don't like this guy, we don't like let's try to kind of play a little roster Tetris there.
So that when Joe interviewed for that job, obviously that was a big part of the interview was Daniel Jones. And this is where I would disagree with how Joe Schoen handled all that. This is your chance, first time GM. So you say all the right things in the interview. Hey, I want to, Daniel Jones is young and we want to give him a chance. And hey, we're going to hire an offensive minded head coach and I want to give this a chance. Fair. But what's not is extending them. You didn't have to do that. You had the perfect hand for a first time GM. You had the former GM's pick as your quarterback. Give him a shot. If he stinks or you're not sure, you had your out. You could have gotten out. And then that gives you another 3, 4, 5 years to build this the way you want to build it around and finding your quarterback. But they went with Daniel Jones. They went with Saquon Barkley, the Gettleman picks. He doubled down on it. And that's, to me, if you're a first-time GM, man, put your stamp on it. Put your stamp on it. Get your quarterback. Get your playmaker. Now, he did with Neighbors, and he did with he's getting some playmakers on defense. I mean, Joe knows talent. You can see that. You see how he's putting that defense together. They need to improve, like you said earlier. That Burns is going to be a huge addition, but the quarterback is who you're always going to be tied to. And I just can't believe you had a chance. You had a chance. Now, this is your hand. Daniel Jones is your hand.
And the comparison is not clean by any means. I think I would take Daniel Jones over the quarterbacks you guys had for the most part in Buffalo, but it's similar in that
That's
you
fair.
and Doug Whaley, when you're running the Bills, I mean, look at your drafts, look at your signings. That
I
those
think
were some
Ron
really good.
Darby. I think Darby's still. I think he won a Super Bowl and still playing. I think Ross Cockrell played for. You had Preston Brown on. He led the NFL. I'm not saying tackles is a big stat, but that was a third round pick leading the NFL in tackles. I mean, those players were, to your point, it's all about the quarterback.
That's what I
you
was going to
just,
get at. Like you guys really did string together some
I
strong
mean,
drafts. I mean,
we drafted like most teams, Tyler. I felt like,
yeah,
we had some good, some bad.
and signings the players around the quarterback. You can talk yourself into that being a team that is in the playoffs. Now you're still dealing with Tom Brady in that division, obviously, but in 2014, hell, I was still at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel covering that Packers game to see what that Bills defense with Jim Schwartz did to Aaron Rodgers in an MVP season. That unit was nasty. Mario Williams, Marcel Darius, Kyle Williams. It was hell. Everybody here heard it from Preston Brown a couple weeks ago. They loved that scheme. My point is like you guys, you made some smart decisions and some decisions backfired. Like that
No
extension of
question.
Darius comes to mind. Trading for Shady looks great. At the time it was heavily criticized. I'm Percy Harvin and Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods, Charles Clay. There was some offensive talent on that team, but if you don't have the quarterback, nobody knows, nobody cares, nobody remembers, and you're moving on out. And I imagine if you have any regrets, it's, you know, to refresh, Doug Whaley did not draft EJ Manuel. You weren't here because Doug brought you in as his right hand man. That was Buddy Nix wanting a quarterback, telegraphing to the NFL that he wanted a quarterback, and taking one in arguably one of the worst drafts for the position in history. So EJ Manuel is the pick 16th overall. Look, we like EJ. We've had him on. There's a lot to love about how he handled that situation. And everybody should go back and listen to that podcast. Man, that was awesome to just kind of sit and listen to you guys go back and forth because it wasn't ideal, the situation he was in. And even Preston Brown, when he was on, I don't know if you caught it, he said he rocked with EJ. Like in that whole quarterback competition, that he wished that the team did stick with EJ for what it's worth. But I'm just saying, like, you kind of inherited him, and then you believe in him, and then you draft Sammy Watkins for EJ, and then you acquire Tyrod Taylor, who has limitations, and Matt Castle's thrown in the mix because Greg Roman loves Matt Castle, and things just kind of putz along for 2013, 2014, 2015 into 2016. It's to your point, I think what you're getting at here, it's man, you just have to take a swing on your guy at quarterback.
No
Comparisons aren't
question.
it's and the reason I think it's a little apples to oranges, and the reason I'm still gonna have a little belief in Daniel Jones and the Giants is because I think Brian Dable is one of
Mm-hmm.
the best offensive minds, quarterback teachers in the sport. Like he will exhaust every ounce of potential in Daniel Jones. This can work. I mean, Malik Neighbors is a freak.
No
The
question.
line will be better. Like when you look at their depth chart.
They'll be
No,
fine.
Evan Neal. We'll see what happens there at tackle, but completely got John Runyon in there.
Who
They'll be
drafted it?
better.
Who drafted Evan Neal? Was that
Oh, that was Joe Schoen and Dable.
so? Now you, as a first-time GM, you have Evan Neal on you, extending Daniel, and completely just wasting Saquon. So I respect the GM position and Joe so much for what he's done. I've known, I love his whole story, but this is it, man. That for me, I'm not going out with Daniel Jones.
And that's the backdrop to all this Hard Knocks stuff. It's the belief in Daniel Jones. This is the season of Daniel. It is all about
It
Daniel
is.
Jones.
It is.
You have placed your bet in this
And if he's
quarterback.
better than if he outplays Hurts and Dak, if he outplays all them and they win this division, then we know that the Philly's getting blown up. We know Dallas is getting like Daniel Jones has a chance to destroy the NFC East if he's successful. He's gonna get some people fired if he's good.
Yeah. Man, it was that offensive line, and I hate using injuries as an excuse.
Okay, Tyler, I put it.
I know. I'm going, but that line was
Tyler,
that was trash.
Tyrod Taylor started 5 games behind that line and went 2-3. That's all I'm gonna say. I agree. It's a bad offensive line. Nobody's going to sit there and argue, but I'm telling you, there are a lot of bad offensive lines in the NFL.
Because that's the other comment that seemed to catch on, right? Joe Schoen said that Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have done anything behind that offensive line. Do you agree with that?
He just said it. I said, hold on. Your backup won. Your backup won games. Like your goal as a backup quarterback is to go 500. That's how we always judge a backup. If he has to play 4 games, can we go 2-2? There is nobody better than Tyrod. Like would you always? I mean, if you had 4 games to play with Tyrod, don't you feel good about going 2-2?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did. It went 2
just need to make a smart decision at the end of the first half against Buffalo.
Oh, good call. Hey, there's a reason. Hey, like I said, there's a reason he's a backup. But point being, come on now. The backup did his job on the same line that Mahomes couldn't play behind. That's extreme.
You got to love a quarterback too. You've got to be interested. And they were interested in Drake May to an extent, right? They didn't completely sell the farm, and who knows if the Patriots would have even bought it. But that's the other part. You've got to be in position to acquire your own guy and be interested and love that quarterback. And that hasn't happened. I mean, so much of it is really timing and knowing how, when to pounce and how to. Like Andy Reid, conviction, and Mahomes, right? You guys are in a position with a new head coach, Sean McDermott, who isn't that interested in a rookie quarterback, nor is Rick Dennison and David Culley an ideal training ground for a rookie quarterback. Timing, like knowing, okay, that's the trade partner, that's the quarterback we want, get him. Because then you get Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. Like, I mean, that's a fireable offense. It's one of maybe the worst trade in draft history. Awful. 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance. North Dakota State, 1 season.
Trey Lance he can't beat out Cooper Rush right now.
Yeah. So that's bad timing, right? They get embarrassed by Josh Allen on Monday Night Football, and they feel like this is where the game's going. We need somebody who's going to smash all the buttons on the controller and just do his own thing. Right? Shanahan's thinking outside the box with that, and as Sean King told us, they're lucky they got Brock Purdy because that would have been a fireball. It's as a GM, man, it's timing. And so is there a team and a quarterback, a change this offseason that you did think took advantage of that timing and made a smart decision at the position?
So are you asking if there's a new quarterback that is in it? Like, I'll tell you a quarterback I'm really fascinated to watch this year. I think it's going to be Matt Stafford. I like where they're headed right now. What they did last year was a little underrated, under the radar, better word, because they were knocking on that playoff door at the end. But they have that core 4, Tyler, that I believe in. The Rams. And Stafford isn't going to be playing much longer, let's face it. And when a guy's ready to get out, you're going to get an amazing get out. But you know what I'm saying? Like, he's ready. He knows he has a year or two here to make another Super Bowl. And they're in a situation in the NFC. Who's better than Stafford in the NFC?
Jordan Love. Come on.
I'm taking Stafford. Next.
Easy, Mr.
Hey,
Bonus.
if it wasn't for Jacoski Tart, I might not take Stafford if he wouldn't have dropped that pick. Because then, Tyler, this whole conversation would be the worst trade in the history of football, because now we'd be saying Jared Goff's better than Stafford. So that's how one play can change everything. But anyway, I do think Stafford and McVay, that combo of coach quarterback, that's one of the most talented offensive play callers and one of the most talented quarterbacks. That's a deadly combo.
Puka Nacua is only going to get better.
Only better.
Kyron Williams. That is a team that we aren't thinking about nearly enough here.
But I'm trying to think of a younger quarterback combo.
I would say just a decision that was made this offseason by a team. It could have been in the draft. It could have been in free agency, an extension that you think it was like a GM. You've been in that seat, like just making the right decision at the right time to go for it.
Yeah, I mean,
I see the other. I see, the Las Vegas Raiders. What's the plan, guys?
What's the plan? What's the plan? I completely agree with you. That's the other end of it.
Gardner Minshew.
I mean, we know what he is. He's what we just talked about. He's the perfect backup. You definitely feel like you could go 2-2 with him, but that's not building a roster. That's not how you. I don't know, man. That's. I like what the Jets did. They went out and got a quarterback named Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, Christ.
No, I'm just kidding. We had to get his name in. We didn't mention him.
I'll
Tyler,
say this.
I don't know
while you brought up Aaron Rodgers, just while you're thinking, I got to throw this line. I was just having an interesting conversation with somebody in the Packers organization who had some thoughts on Aaron Rodgers' impact on the current quarterback and the current team that may be shared at some point and go along. So little tease of sorts there.
Tyler, I think I'd add that the situation in Green Bay didn't really change, correct? As far as the structure, even though I know they had some with that policy, but the structure is still the same. Murphy, Goody, floor, everything's they just run. It's just a wild-oiled machine.
This is Murphy's last year, so they're just setting that policy up for next year.
Got you. He's just it's a smooth transition.
The deal that I like more and more is Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville.
I mean, I was just going to say, I agree with those quarterback deals. You have to keep those guys. You got to go with them. They are your best option to make your run. Trevor is. Tua is. Jared
Goff.
I told you, I'm not. I don't know if I'd commit to Dak. I told you, I'd find a way out on Dak. I'm not completely in on him yet. But those other ones I agree with, like you said. I'm looking right now, Tyler. I'm just going through. You caught me. That was a good question with the young guy. Somebody that's going to, a combo that is going to catch people. Are you excited about the Justin Herbert, Greg Roman combo? Because, okay, here's why I am.
Yes. I mean, I want to see how this goes down.
I had to hear, and Greg Roman, we know his history, but he didn't want Tyrod. He wanted Matt Castle. He had to coach Kaepernick, in his words, how he termed it, whatever. That was, then he has Lamar in Baltimore. Like, what kind of quarterback? Herbert is different than all those guys. Now, you wanted Matt Castle in Buffalo. So I'm thinking, now you have Herbert. This is more on he's going to handle your full, I think the line is full playbook, however you say it.
Yeah.
He can handle the whole playbook, the cliche you always hear. But I do want to see this Herbert combo, because somebody needs to get something out of this talent. So Greg Roman's stepping into a great situation. because you really can only get better because you haven't done anything. They didn't do it with him. So that's why, and we'll get into this later down the road, but that's why I think a team like the Chargers, they're always knocking on the door, but they can bust through the door if that combo hits. If that offense strikes with Herbert and Herbert, then they're right in the mix.
Well, you know their identity, and you know they draft Joe Alt, they sign Gus Edwards, they want to run the ball,
Okay,
let all
but
these receivers go. And how does that square with your quarterback?
it goes back to the whole Joe Schoen conversation. All that's garbage. This is all about the quarterback for the Chargers. They better get it right. That tackle, all that, those are horrible picks if you can't get that quarterback right.
But Justin Herbert
Not
is
that
one
he's
of the
not
best
right.
quarterbacks in the NFL.
Well, not that he's not right. You're correct. He puts up, you got to win. You got to find ways to win with him. That's what it is. You have to find a way to win. We've seen the talent. We know he can put up the numbers.
I'm going to give this a chance. Like, we obviously been critical of Greg Roman, and you talk to any wide receiver who has played for that coordinator in that scheme, and they have nothing good to say. I mean, Willie Snead here was critical, but Steve Smith after that Bills playoff loss, remember him on NFL Network shredding Roman. So it's out there. Everybody knows. At the same time, like I feel like the Chargers hype machine is, pun intended, recharged this time of year every year, and everybody's excited about, oh, this Joe Lombardi offense, and oh, they're bringing in this coordinator, they're bringing in Kellen Moore, they're bringing in this weapon, that weapon. I can't wait to see what they do with Austin Eckler. How are they going to scheme up Keenan Allen? None of it worked. I mean, not in the division of Mahomes. So this will be a hard swing, a totally different direction. Everywhere Jim Harbaugh's been, he has won. Like the identity of the team is real. He wants tough, old school players, which in a league going athletic and finesse and a different direction by and large, that I think that can work if you have the quarterback. Not if you have Desmond Ritter, but it can work if you've got Justin Herbert.
They
Now,
have
he's throwing to Lad McConkey and Quentin Johnston, so let's see if they can get separation.
I like McConkey.
But I'm intrigued, and I want to give Greg Roman and the Chargers offense like a realistic chance here because
So
I
do
think
I.
Herbert is that good, and I think Harbaugh's that good.
I agree with you. I actually think they have a core four.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying that's a team that can just right on the scene. They have the formula, like it's there for the. I think they should be in the mix right away.
And I think of one of your old coworkers, Anthony Lynn, when you say core four, because I know when he was the head coach there, ownership wasn't really down for signing guys. They did not want to spend money, and I think there was probably some frustration.
They did not
He
have a core
leaves, and
four.
they just start signing everybody, right?
Right. There may have been more that man situations you can be set up. Some not set up. I'm not saying he was set up, but situations can be set up for failure. Like it just can you imagine being Anthony Lynn, you're a new head coach and you have ownership saying, yeah, we're not going to spend money.
I think that
That's
Anthony Lynn fell on a lot of swords too publicly. He became known for clock management issues and things
yeah,
going haywire at the end of halves, at the end of games.
yeah,
I do
that's
not
tough.
think that was all on the head coach. I think that if you really take it case by case, if you look closely, you had a quarterback at fault at times, a play caller at fault. I mean, I think there was different forces at play here, and you're the head coach. And I think he probably felt I've got to take the blame in a lot of these situations, and it became his reputation, fair or unfair. Uh,
He'll
Again,
Anthony Lynn's not going to sell anybody out ever.
no,
I would never think he would do.
never. Which I kind of takes us back to the NFC East too, because let's see what an Anthony Lynn and a Cliff Kingsbury can do with the Jane Daniels. You've been high on Jane Daniels.
He's
Quietly, there's a really promising infrastructure there for his development.
I love it. I love everything they're trying to do. They committed to him. He feels it. He knows it. That's set up for success.
Okay, Jim, this was fun. I know this is the quiet time of year. There's not a lot happening, but again, thanks for hanging with us. Go long subscribers, listeners, readers, because promise we're going to have a lot of in-depth stories running very soon at the site. And hey, if you're new here, $8 a month, $50 a year, we'd love to have you as a subscriber. Great time to join the community. And we'll definitely keep this podcast humming. We'll have some things to announce with the podcast as the season gets closer as well. Jim, I'll see you Sunday for a little barbecue action. And then probably the week after that, we've got to loop in Mr. Matthew Fairburn and treat him to his Grange dinner for winning the quarterback draft a year ago. I don't even know if we had to tally up the scores. He had the superior group of quarterbacks, and then we'll draft again for this season.
Hey, Matt has been in Vegas I feel like for about 3 weeks covering everything, NFL, NHL drafts and free agency. He's going to need a free meal. He might be broke.
Spoken from experience, Jim.
I've heard Vegas could do that sometimes. I've heard.
Thanks so much, everyone. We'll catch you next time. As always, Fatty Beer, get on in. Great place to pick up some cold beverages for the 4th. This is a fun weekend, one of the best the entire year. So find a Fatty near you if you're in Western New York. And if you're nearby, it's worth the trip. Thank you so much, everyone.